Okay, good evening, everyone. Michael O'Neill here again. I am very pleased to be joined from New Jersey with former MJFDC player Evie Manning. Evie, how are you doing?
Hi, Mike. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
How's life under Biden and not Trump?
It's good. It's going to be interesting, I think, to see what goes on moving forward with the visas and stuff like that. Obviously, it really affects me and my situation at the minute. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Which part of New Jersey are you in?
So I'm in central New Jersey. I'm about a 30-minute drive from New York City at the minute, depending on the traffic. But with COVID situation, doesn't take long at all, which is great.
How's the weather?
It actually just started snowing right before I got on with you. So I think we're expected to get about 1 inch today. So we'll see how that goes.
Brilliant. Well, stay safe. Obviously, yeah, it seems a crazy world in the United States of America at the minute from what we've seen on TV. So, yeah.
Definitely.
So we're going to be online for maybe 35, 40 minutes. We're going to talk a little bit about you, about your journey, starting from when you were, obviously very young and where you are today. And pleased to let you know that we had a record number of questions via our female players within the club and a few from outside as well. So you are beating James Cragen in the question stake already. So a little moral victory before we move on further down the week.
Love that.
So yeah, so dead easy. First question, Evie Manning, earliest football memories.
I think some of my earliest memories probably start like back in primary school, as in probably year 2, so about 6 or 7, and that's really when I started playing, footy with the lads in the playground. And I do remember actually, my mum was furious with me because I'd gone through about 3 pairs of school shoes in the space of a month. She goes into the teacher and she was like, "What is going on? Her shoes are getting wrecked." And the teacher was like, "You do know she was playing football with the lads at playtime." And that was it. I was exposed then. That's how it started out. And then I'd say from there, it really took off. I was playing for the local boys team at the time. Around 7, I think I started with them, Lytham Juniors. And from there, like I said, it really progressed on. But I was the only girl in the team at Lytham Juniors. It was quite funny. I always remember I'm still very close with the coach that coached me at the time, and he always, would tell me, he used to laugh that teams would say, "Oh, they've got a girl," and he used to stand there on the sideline and think, "Oh, they won't be laughing and saying that in a minute," and he was right. So those are really probably the earliest memories. That, I started with the boys team and then progressed on from there. But the first few years of when I was playing, I was the only girl on the team, and yeah, it was great.
How long did you play for the boys for?
I think I was from 7 through till I must have been about 10. I know at the time, when I was growing up, it was very different for girls in football. There wasn't really a lot of players that played, and the opportunities for the girls that did play, it was very few and far between. Myself and a couple of other girls that I ended up playing with at my school, I know that they all played for some boys teams as well. And then as soon as we turned 10 or 11 years old, we were no longer able to play for the boys team. That then became kind of the conflict of interest that, girls and boys shouldn't be playing together. And that was it. That was kind of, you've got to go elsewhere and find a girls team then at that point.
It's weird that, and obviously we spoke a little bit before we press record about the girls today would not be aware that, in your career, which you're still relatively young, early to mid 20s, that at 10 years old you were told you can no longer play for this team anymore because you are a girl. And yeah, that even for me, and I've been in grassroots football 16 years now, I sit here now and I feel uncomfortable about that how can anyone tell you that you can no longer play because of ultimately your gender? It doesn't ultimately seem fair. So how did you feel when that came about? Did your parents break it to you quite well, and were you kind of unaware, or were you conscious that you were a girl that could no longer play for your team?
I think, like I said, I was conscious that situation was happening, but at the same time, it's gutting to hear that, you can no longer play with those lads that I played with. They were literally my best friends, and you know, 4 of them now still to this day, still my best friends. I talk to them every day, I go home, that's who I'm with. So like to hear the fact that just because I am a female and I'm a girl, I can no longer play with my best friends that were boys just because I am a girl, when in reality, I'd like to think I was probably just as good, if not as, better. But to hear that, you have to stop, and there's nothing that could be done about it. Nothing that I said or someone else said would change the views. That was how it was. It was just everyone was kind of in the same boat. The girls had to then go elsewhere and find their clubs. And at the time, like I said, women's football is not what it is. It was not what it is now. So those opportunities were slim.
And to put a little bit of context, when you joined Myerscough under 11, we only had 2 female teams then. We're now up to 8. I think we had 27 registered female players at the time when you joined. We project we'll be around 120 in July. So even at, Myerscough Juniors, we've had an increase of nearly 100 females playing. And it is a mix. We have a lot of girls who still compete with the boys, still play for the boys' teams. And then we have a lot of girls who could play for boys' teams, but kind of choose to play for the girls. So we, and that's just Myerscough. I know Cadley, I know Fleetwood Town Juniors, I know all the girls' clubs in the area are doing exactly the same. So yeah, girls' football, and credit to the FA with the Wildcat programme. Girls' football has improved no end. You missed the wave just.
Yeah.
No consolation to you. But, for my daughters, especially, Evie's only 7 and she's in her 2nd season of playing football, which when you were young, I presume you'd have had to have played for a boys' team to have played football at 7, whereas she's on an all-girls team.
So, love that, definitely.
Yeah, it's really interesting to get your take on that. So you signed at Myerscough Juniors at 11, and curiously, my wife was your first female coach. So how did
Correct.
you find your time at Myerscough?
I absolutely loved my time at Myerscough. It was such a good experience. It was great. The facilities at the time were phenomenal. We had the best pitches on those backfields. They were always in quality shape. We used to love playing at home, because if we went elsewhere at the time, it was like you weren't really guaranteed a good pitch, but you get them at home on the Myerscough field, and that was class. But it was just, still to this day, I talk to some of my old teammates, Emily Hutton, and we had such great memories and made, really great friends. And the quality of the football was just class, really. We had really good players, and we were contending for the league every year, and we won it, and it was very good experience.
Yeah, you mentioned teammates. We've actually now got Becky Ramsed, who has come back to the club, and she's coaching our under-12s girls.
That's great.
Part of her motivation, obviously playing for Myerscough, she wants to come back, but she wants to get on a teaching training course, which she successfully did yesterday. So public Brilliant. Congratulations to Becky for that. And I remember your team, and I used to come along and watch, and you were a really good group, and a lot of fun to watch. And I remember your rivalries with Berry. Do you remember much about that?
Oh my God, absolutely I do. Do you know what? me and my dad were talking, and we still to this day talk about it. There was one time, I think it was like the final year that we were still a team, and we played them away at Bury, and I think it was for like the league decider, and we were up 3-0, and I'd scored a hat-trick in that game as well, and they ended up walking off the pitch early.
Yeah.
That is just, I swear, like me and my dad still talk about it. It's so funny.
Yeah, brilliant. And then I couldn't talk about your time at Myerscough without mentioning the summers where we had a really good relationship with, I think it was Bobby Charlton Soccer Schools at the time, where they ran a residential programme at Myerscough, and they used to reach out to the juniors and can you provide opposition? And you and Emily Hutton and Emily Lupton and possibly one other guested for the boys team, which I ran at the same age. And I always remember you played right wing, and the little lad at left back was kind of gesturing as if to say, that's who I'm playing against. And I think within 10 minutes, you'd put in a very, very strong challenge. And he eventually flew home. Yeah. Legend has it with injury. We don't know whether it was to the legs or to his pride, but
too funny.
left your mark on him. And yeah. And so, yeah, on the whole, time at my school, good fun. And do you remember anything about your teammates in particular, or your coaching team, or any particular area of success that sticks out?
I would just think, you know, for me, the coaching, obviously. Sorry about that. You still see me?
You're right.
Yeah, the coaching obviously was phenomenal. It was second to none. You know, we had a great relationship with Kate, and the team itself. Like I said, we were so close knit. Like, because they didn't have, you know, multiple age groups of girls. You know, you mentioned Becky Ramshead. I remember Eleanor Holden, a couple of other girls. They were actually the year below us at schools, and you know, at the same time, it was like we were just really close knit, and we had such a good time. It was a great laugh, and you know, I used to love playing on the Sundays. It was a great experience, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. I think, you know, that level, and it really kind of shaped and made me who the player I was that ended up being. So for me, I was, you know, very grateful for everything that Kate and yourself did.
And within that time, you also represented Lancashire, which Mike Nadal informed me that you were part of the inaugural squad of Lancashire Schools FA. And it is one of the questions at the end, but I'll ask it now. You know, Mike did ask us to ask you, how did you feel making your county debut and being part of that process?
I think it was, you know, it was great, you know, honor, really. That was as a player at the time, you wanted to represent your club. If you could represent your county, that's excellent. And then really you want to kind of build on those stepping stones and build up to the highest level you possibly can. And at the age of 16, I was able to then represent England too. But at the time, to kind of play alongside some of the players that I played with at Lancashire, you know, you see today, Kira Walsh, she's playing in the WSL, and she's starting for City every week and all that. So to be kind of around those players and play at that level, and that experience was just excellent. It was a really good experience.
So your time wraps up at Myerscough at the end of under 15, and you moved on to Blackburn Rovers. How did you find the transition from grassroots to RTC?
Correct. It was definitely, I think at the time, a right move for me. At the time, Blackburn, at that age and at that time, were really kind of one of the powerhouses in women's football. There was not these Man Cities and all that were putting the money in that they do today. So Blackburn was really a powerhouse, and I think it was the right step in my career. I felt sort of ready. I was young. I was very young. I think I just turned 16, and Blackburn came in for me, and I started off with the reserves, but I was training with the first team just to kind of get my feet wet a little bit. And I made my first team debut in the FA Cup at the age of like 16 and something. But it was just, I think at the time it was, I think for me, what really helped me with the grassroots was just the strength, you know, kind of like the physical side of the game. I think that piece is so important. And I think that's something that you get at the grassroots compared to the RTC and that kind of level. I think that there's a bit more physicality into it, which I think also then translated to me coming out to America as well. I think that was a huge piece of my game that really I do think developed from a younger age, being around boys, but then also just through the grassroots.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because our girls' sides, because we've had them since a really young age, we tend to play against quite a few of the boys' teams, and some of the girls are sometimes quite reluctant. And I'm sure they have their own reasons for that. But I agree. I think once you've played against the boys a couple of times, you learn to use your body a little bit differently. And
definitely,
I always find girls to have a higher level of technical ability than the boys, but the boys have possibly got that physical edge. So, you know, and I think it's part of your success is that you had those formative years with the boys, and even with your time at Myerscough with Kate, we used to join in training sessions quite a bit, boys and girls, especially in pre-season. And you know, the boys team I ran, obviously you were then training with lads who were playing professionally today in Dion Charles and Joe Noblet, who played semi-professional, and you were competing with them every summer, which is great. And yeah, really, really good point that we need the girls to hear that playing with and against the boys is a good thing, and it's good for your development. So 16 to 18, you then, I presume you passed all your GCSEs, Evie. You always strike me as a bright girl. So you did well at school.
Yes, I did.
And what did you move on to then?
So then at the age of 16, I went to Accrington and Rosedale College. What kind of pushed me to go down that route? I was kind of looking at Cardinal Newman and whatever in Preston, but Aki had a very, very good football academy. I believe it's still to this day just as strong. It was really kind of a great opportunity to train every day. In the mornings we'd go in, we'd train, and then we'd have classes in the afternoon. And it was really just a way to kind of see where I could go with it, really. I wanted to obviously keep playing, and to me, what sounds more attractive than playing every day? You know, nothing. So I went on to do that, got a BTEC in sport. It was a great experience.
And a lot of people are, and again, we'll come on to it in the questions at the end, but a lot of people are really inquisitive about the process of you going out to America. So kind of like, when did that start in your head? And then how did the process start in terms of your application process and possibly reaching out to colleges and trying to generate a little bit of interest?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, from a young age, I think my dad could probably keep me honest here, but I think I'd always wanted to kind of, probably from like 11, 12, really wanted to go out to the US. I think what sparked the initial attractment to it was I watched like Bend It Like Beckham, the movie, and in that movie, it's all about like them going out to the US and getting the scholarship and all that. So that I still to this day really do think that is what sparked the interest in it. And then it was kind of, I think I was about 15, and I ended up going out and playing in the Dallas Cup with one of my teams. And out there, we were the first women's team to play out in the Dallas Cup. And I went out there, I kind of emailed all of a bunch of coaches that I knew were going to be going, sent them kind of the games that I was playing in. And that was, you know, my exposure to get out there. I think now, being in the experience and having done it myself, come out here, and then I've also, obviously after my career, I college coached at the level, so I have a little bit more knowledge into it. I would say really, you know, for these players that are interested in doing it, it's a case of getting like highlight films put together, highlight tapes, emailing coaches that you think you might be interested in their school, and really just starting those connections and introducing yourself, because if you don't email, they're not going to find you, pretty much. So you need to kind of get on that.
And how did you find the kind of like the transitional period in moving out to the States, the first couple of months being away from home? And I know you're very close to your dad. You know, were they tough times?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, you know, to be honest, so I went out there in August. I was recruited to go out a year early, so I actually turned 17 when I was out there during preseason. So I moved halfway across the world at the age of 16. I remember my dad dropping me off at the airport with my one bag of clothes. If you looked in my house now, you'd be like, where on earth has she got all this stuff from? But it was, you know, it was really emotional because, like you said, I was very close to him, and I think he'd probably, I don't know, he'd been to every game, and it was tough. So at the age of 16, like I said, to move across the world, I actually was there from August to December for the first season. The way that the seasons go out there is you play all your games August through December if you're lucky enough to go the whole way and make it to the national championship. And we won it that year. And after the semester ended, I actually packed up my bag and said, I'm not going back. So I came home to the UK and didn't go back. So from the following year, January 2014 to December 2014, that full year I stayed at home in the UK. It was just too much for me. I think at the time I was very young. Like I said, I was recruited a year early, so that made it a little bit difficult. And I was just, I was homesick. To go and move halfway across the world and not have, you know, anybody. It was very tough. very tough. But then I think that year home allowed me to kind of grow up a bit. I was working 2 jobs, ended up actually going and playing for Man City for their reserve team. So it was kind of a growing up year for me. And I really noticed and realized like what a wasted opportunity I've just kind of given away. And I was lucky enough to get back in touch with my coach, and I went back. But that year for me at home, I think, was really important, because I was able to kind of realize, do I want to be stuck at home working 2 waitressing jobs and doing this and that to get by, or I could go out there to the States, play every day, get an excellent education, and see where that takes me. And luckily my dad was responsive enough when I told him in like November time, I want to go back, and we made it work. So it was like I said, it was a crazy couple of months when I first went out there. It was very difficult. It really was.
I vaguely remember a phone conversation when you were back with Kate, and Kate was trying to not talk you around, but trying to emphasize that, look, what an opportunity you've walked away from. And her brother went through the NCAA process, and so she had a little bit of background in it. But something that always strikes me, and social media has made it a small world, even though with 6,000 miles per hour, whatever it is, you see people's lives instantly on Instagram and Facebook. And I remember, and I want you to tell us about when your dad came out and surprised you. Was it seniors day?
Yeah, so he actually came out in my junior year, which was my 3rd year out there, and then that was great for him to come out and see. But then my senior year, America does things very extravagant, and they're very emotional about the things that they do and stuff like that. So my senior year, they have a senior day basically, which is where the parents walk out on the field with you, and you get introduced and all this stuff, and it's like a huge ceremony kind of thing. And I didn't think my dad was going to be able to make it. I think he was maybe working in probably Dubai would be my guess. And I just kind of writ off, he's not making it. I'm going to be walking out on the field with my friends, my teammates, like, that's fine. And he did make it, and it was a very great experience. And I actually won. There was like a award ceremony at night, and I won like this huge award as well. And it was a really great experience to see me do that.
Yeah, it's something that always strikes me, and whenever we talk about Evie Manning, it's always noted the relationship that you had with your dad and how supportive he was of you, and we see that as a crucial ingredient in anyone's success, that you have support from not just your parents, but from various sources. But you seem to get quite a lot of strength from your dad. So yeah,
definitely.
That's really nice, very inspiring. Having 2 daughters myself, so yeah, I have a lot. So you graduated from university, and you then went on into a coaching career. Is that something else you'd like to talk to us about?
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, I had a very successful 4 years, won a national championship, which is the biggest achievement you can get, won some individual awards along the way. And then it was kind of like, after my senior season ended, it was like, well, now what? I had another 5 months or so left of school. But once your season's ended, it's kind of like, that's it. You've got no more football. And it was honestly like a massive shock to the system. And for me, I was kind of like a little bit lost, didn't really know what to do. Could have come home maybe and continued to play. I actually, during my time in the States, I had 2 hip surgeries, so I was out for 8 months at a time. And I think that kind of played into my factor a little bit on what to do. I don't think my body probably could have handled continuing to playing at the high level had I come home from the US. So at the time, I then looked into, they do kind of a thing out here in the States, it's called a graduate assistant position. So you then apply for it. It can be, a lot of schools, NCAA have it. And it's basically you become an assistant coach at the college level, and being that assistant coach actually pays for your master's degree as well. So I went on to continue my further education at no extra cost. And I was able to kind of stay in the game in a way of coaching. And for me, that was a really great experience. It was kind of a nice transition to go from playing every day and doing all of that, and the competitive edge, you know, I mean, you know me, I'm so competitive, I hate to lose. And to have that kind of thought that, oh my God, I've got nothing else in my life right now that is offering competition, it was kind of just so scary. So for me, it was a really great chance to continue to keep that little bit of competition in my life and go on and coach. And I loved it. It was excellent.
Yeah. I think when you mention competitive, I would rank you in the top 5 most competitive people I've ever met. Certainly did not enjoy the sensation of losing a coin toss, rock, paper, scissors, let alone a game of football. Yeah. And kind of like last little question from me before we move on to some of the questions that the girls have submitted. Have you any further ambitions in the game?
Yeah, so actually right now I'm still out here, obviously in the States, and I'm coaching at a club level, which is really great. I have 2 teams right now. They are juniors, which is in high school, they're like 16, 17 years old. And then I have another team that they are 13, 14-year-old girls, which is great. And for me, I think it's really been a great opportunity to kind of push on them what I know, my knowledge of the game, but also I think it's an important piece of it is really life lessons. You know, I think at the time, obviously yourself and Kate, you've taught so much, and at the time, at my age, when I was younger, it was kind of like, well, you know, and then, but now looking back, the lessons that my coaches have taught me and everything has shaped the way that I now coach and help those kids, not just on the field, but then also in their lives as well. Like, it's a really great experience, and I'm loving it. So.
No, it's important, and you know, I think people like yourself getting back involved in grassroots football, and you'll create another 10 of you, which can only be good for girls football. And in terms of the teams that you're running, if ever you want to bring them over to the UK to play against, you know, MySco teams or any other teams we can help you, then please do.
Definitely.
Because the American process is something that we've spent a little bit of time looking at as a club. We want to provide avenues for boys and girls to get out to the States and access that high level education, but also that high level playing program as well. Because, you know, I've played university sport in the UK, and it's
right.
nothing in comparison to how it's done in the States. So yeah, that's one that I might come back to you on at a later date, Evie Manning.
Definitely.
With your connections. So we're going to move on to some of the questions. Now, we only checked it out late last night, but we got some absolutely quality ones in. And I said I'd name drop the girls as well, which is important. So this is from Evie Lee, who plays for our under-12s girls. She's actually a goalkeeper, so I'm surprised she's gone down this avenue. But she asks, most memorable goal and who was your inspiration?
Okay. Most memorable goal. If we're going most memorable goal at MySco, I'd probably have to ever.
So if we were going to put one Evie Manning goal up on YouTube, which one would it be?
That is a tough one. I'd probably say there was one of my header goals that I scored out here in the States the week before. I'm a huge believer, kids, in goal setting. You know, before the season, what goals do you want to achieve this year? How do you want to achieve them? And I'd set out my final year. I'd set out some goals that because I'm tall, I'm close to 6 foot. You'd think that I'd be better than I actually was in the goals, and using my head. And on a corner situation, that week prior to this goal, I'd set out a goal to myself. You know, I'm going to train. I'm going to do extra practice after training. I'm going to get someone to fire some balls in. I want to score in my head. Like, I need to do it. And the week after I'd done all this extra hours of training using my head, having people throw tennis balls at my head, like everything. Someone put a ball in and it was just like perfect. I rose right above everyone, just flicked it in my head, and I was like, oh, hard work pays off. little life lesson for you right there. But no, yeah, that was early. Too funny.
And who's your inspiration? Just that last little bit on Evie's question.
I I would say at the time, you know, for me growing up, it was kind of, it was very different. There wasn't really female players that I really looked up to. I don't know. I think there was a lack of that compared to what there is right now. I would say, you know, I used to absolutely love watching Cristiano Ronaldo. I played out wide. I would just watch him on YouTube for hours. I would say that was probably it. Like, I want to be as good as him.
That's good. He's not too bad, is he? So this is from Jasmine Hurst, who's in our under-13s, and this is a great question. How have the opportunities for girls changed since you were young, and did you have to play for a boys' team? So we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we definitely did.
But how do you see? Is there anything in you that thinks, if only it was like that when I was young?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think, you know, like we said earlier on, the opportunities were very, very slim at the time. And for me, at my age, when I turned 16, it was almost like, if I really want to make something of this, I probably have to go out to America. I think now it's really changed in the sense of, you know, as I moved out at 16, 17, it was kind of a tough decision because I just broke through to the England setup. I was, you know, with Blackburn and City, and that was at the time where they were really starting to pump more money into the women's game. When I played for City, you know, we were training at the men's training ground and stuff like that. And now that's almost kind of a given, where when I was growing up, that was not it. That was not the case at all. So I kind of, at the time, it was like it's starting to kick off, but it's still not there. So for me, it was a great decision to kind of go across to the States, just because the opportunities were so slim for girls in football.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see where it'll be in 10 years' time as well, because obviously,
definitely,
in the 8-9 years you've been away, it's certainly improved massively.
Yeah.
So this is a question, and it was submitted by two different players, but it was quite similar. It was from Cara Lee and Heidi Johnson, who were both in the under-11s. What made you want to play football?
I think, like I said, I would revert back to when I was younger. I was playing in the playground with the boys, and I think at first I was like, well, I want to play. That looks fun. Like, why can I not play? None of the other girls played. I was the only one, and I think that was really it. Like, I was close. I've always been close friends with boys. That's just the way I've been. And for me, it was like, well, the girls are over there playing TIG, but I want to go play football. Why can I not? And so eventually, like I said, I ruined 3 pairs of school shoes. Off I went, and you know, no looking back now at this point.
Oh, brilliant. So this is from two sisters, Izzy and Evie J, who play for the under-11s, under-9s respectively. Is there a certain player that inspired you to play football?
I would say, growing up, I don't know about a certain player, but growing up, I had every single pair of boots that David Beckham had. How could you not? It's David Beckham, you know, quality. I would say he was probably one of the ones around that time. He was different class, so that would be the one.
I do remember your obsession with Beckham. This one's from Olivia Newman-Kirk, who's in our under-12s. Was it a tough decision to move to America?
Definitely. Like I said, it was really hard, not even just from the aspect of, okay, I'm moving halfway across the world on my own. I don't, you know, my family's not going to be there. But like I said, at the time, I'd just broken through to the England setup. And actually, my first ever England camp, I was 16, I was with the U19s, and I got through the email and I was looking at the dates that the camp was going to be. And I realized that my visa interview to come out to the States, to go to London, was smack bang in the middle of the England camp. And I said to my dad, like, what do I do? This is, you know, this is my first ever opportunity. I've finally made it, like, what I was working towards since I was such a young kid. And right in the middle of it was this visa interview where I had to go to London. And, you know, to talk about, was it a hard decision? Well, you've got to the best level you can in England pretty much, and to get your foot in the door, and then you have to go for an interview. And I ended up actually moving the visa interview, and I went and did the whole camp. But then, like I said, I attended a few more camps after that. But it was really the opportunity to pass up going to America and getting a free education, and the level, it was the right decision.
Every credit. And then we've got, at what age did you know you wanted to be a footballer? And I think, and that's from Eva Westbury, who's under 12s. I think she's kind of saying, when did it become your career? In your mind, obviously you played for fun at a young age, but when did it, in your head, right, I want to be?
Yeah, I think, like I said, from 12-year-old-ish, I kind of thought I really want to go out to America and I want to, take that experience and do that experience. So I would say around 12-ish is when I was like, this is what I want to do. But then at the age of 14, 15, I kind of realized, it is really something that I can do if I apply myself in the right way. I think I had the physical skill set, I have, the skills and whatnot, but it was really then just about applying myself and putting that attitude into making sure that what I was doing was going to get me where I wanted to go. So I would say initially around 11, 12, but then really started to go for it around 14, 15.
Then we've got, and this is probably my personal favourite. So this is from Izzy Scurrett, who's in our under 15s girls. And she asks, is there one piece of advice you'd give a 14-year-old Evie Manning?
I think looking back now from what I've known, I would say, especially the success that I had out in America, I would say start to goal set from a young age as soon as you can before a season starts, and lay out those goals. What do you want to achieve this season personally, but then also as a team? Obviously your team, it should always be, I want to win the league, we want to do this, want to do that, but then personally, what do you want to achieve for yourself? How do you want to grow? How do you want to progress? Because I think that keeps you kind of accountable to what you're doing. I think, it's okay to say, oh, I want to score 10 goals or whatever, but then it's also, you start to ask yourself the question, what do I need to do to score 10 goals a season? Would that be practicing extra on my shooting and stuff like that? I think that would be huge. Like I said, it's given me the success that I had, and had I known that probably even younger, I would say, who knows where I could have probably else gone with it. But that for me was really important to my success that I had.
No, it's a great point. Great point. This is from Hannah Knowles, who's also in the under 15s. How did your scholarship in America come about?
Yeah, so I touched on that a little bit earlier. Like I said, I was able to play out in the Dallas Cup, and that kind of was giving me the opportunity to get myself actually out and exposed to the college coaches. But I would say, for anybody else, that you really, if you can, start to build up those highlight tapes and stuff like that, anything that kind of shows the video footage of yourself, to get that out to college coaches. And it's a case of you need to get on the list of schools. There's a huge list of schools online, and it's very overwhelming because there's thousands and thousands of schools in the US. But I think it's important to kind of remember at the same time, and this was a huge piece for me, there's more to life than football at the same time. So your decision that you're making, I think you also need to, for me, I would say, look at the education side of things. I had many offers to many schools, and for me, it was really important that I made sure I was getting an excellent education out of it. Because at the end of the day, like I said, you never know what's going to happen. I ended up having 2 hip surgeries, and at the age of 21, my body couldn't take it anymore. So it was kind of a case of setting myself up for a later life at the same time. The education side is so important.
Yeah, nice word. It's, I think it's, the more kids hear that, the better.
Definitely.
So this kind of got answered in the interview, but how old were you when you first started playing? And that's from Ellie May, who's in the under 11s.
I asked my mum this actually before because I couldn't remember, but it was around year 2 when I started playing, like in the playground with the lads. And then I got invited to one of the boys' birthday parties, actually. And that is how I then ended up playing for the local boys team, Lytham Juniors at the time. I think it's funny, I remember now this one kid in my class, his dad actually called the coach and was like, well, why she made the team and my son's not? So there's another example of, how different it was back then. So I think I played for the boys at like 7.
And then we are coming to the end of these. Best football boots you ever owned, and that's from Tia, who's in the under 11s.
Oh, best ever pair. I have 2. I had one pair that was both pairs were Tiempos. One was Ronaldinho's gold and white ones. Right, that was one pair. They were just great. And then the other pair was Tiempos again. I'm a big Tiempo fan, clearly. And they were like white and yellow, and they had like this carbon fiber bottom. And this is actually a really funny story. I got injured in a tournament actually, like really badly, and rolled my ankle anyway. And I actually ended up having to go to hospital for it. But my coach come running on at the time and with the scissors to cut my boot off. My dad was like, whoa, 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 no, you're not cutting those boots. No, came running onto the pitch. So I would say between the two, those 2 are my 2 favorite pair of boots.
Next question from Amy Beardwood in the under 11s. And this is something that, I think we really need to help educate kids. So in terms of your match prep, when you were younger and today, what are your best bits of advice? What is it that girls need to be doing?
I'd say just, focus one game at a time, really. I think you got to take it game by game. And for me, I think, Mike, you can vouch for me on this. I was a little bit of a head case at times. I was very emotional. And I think it's important for me, as I learned growing up, was those little mistakes that you make, you need to let go of those as soon as possible, because if you don't, that's going to be something that's going to affect your whole game. So for me, as I grew up, that was an important piece, is that I had to let go of the mistakes and move on to the next pass, move on to the next tackle, whatever.
Were you good the day before a game in terms of your nutrition and your sleep?
Definitely. And as you get older, that is so key. Coming out to the States, to America, that was huge. My team, we actually had a sleep chart in the locker room. We tracked our sleep, because, and our coach would look at it, because if someone was getting 4 hours of sleep, they're not going to be able to play to the best of their ability. So that was huge. Very, very important piece of it, the sleep side and the nutrition.
And something that, and I don't want to sound like an old fuddy-duddy parent, but like the hydration side of stuff, I know that's huge in America. I can't get my kids to drink water.
So important.
Drink Vimto or Robinsons. I'm trying to, not just my own children, but all children, that actually water is possibly the best thing you can put in your body.
Yep. It really is. I think I get off that point. I remember a game, my final year in the States. It was like the middle of October, but it was 32 degrees out in the middle of the afternoon, and we're playing, and it was so hot. And I knew that it was going to be hot. We were playing. It was a really big game, and so like a few days before the game, I knew that weather was coming. So I was just super, super focused on like the amount of water that I was taking and drinking. And that game then came around, and I've never felt as good as I did on the pitch in that game, because I was just perfectly hydrated, because I'd been drinking and prepping before the game. So drinking water is so important. It really, really is.
I owe you a drink for that. You possibly helped me there. And then last question, and it's from, I've forgotten to write down who it's from, so forgive me. But the question is, as a girl who's gone on to be really highly successful in football, what are the key components of your success? What has really been the crucial ingredient in Evie Manning going on and playing at the level you've played and going out to the States?
I think just being committed and believing in what you can do and what you can achieve. I kind of always felt like I worked hard to get to where I ended up. And I think that's the most important thing is, talent's great, but if you don't work hard and put in the extra hours, then, you're not going to get as far as what you possibly could if you're putting in that extra time, that extra commitment, that extra work. You know, my first year out in the States, I actually didn't play as much as I would have liked, to be honest with you. And for me, that was kind of a little bit of a shake up. Like, what more do I need to do? What more do I need to give? What else can I give and do to push to be that level? And, you know, when I returned, came right back in, I slipped in as a captain, and it was excellent because I'd finally, like I said, grown up and realized that I need to do these things to get to where I want to be.
No, it's really, really good advice. And, you know, we have the teams that we have at the minute, we have kind of like under sevens girls who are just delightful. And then we go all the way up to under 15s with a slight gap at 14s, but our 15s are a mix of the two. And, you know, with the lockdown in mind, something that's been, you know, on our minds is that's the key time when girls particularly start to drop out of teams. You know, is there any advice you could give to the girls around that 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old mark who are possibly a little bit worried about the footy and the conditioning? You know, what things could they be doing now to keep themselves ticking over?
I really think this is actually a great time for those kids. I almost wish that, you know, I would have been able to go through something like this where I had that extra time to train. I think this is you know, a phenomenal time and period right now where you can work on your own individual things to make you better as a player. What can you work on, whether it be your passing, your foot skills, you know, your speed, your fitness, identify key pieces of your game that could, you know, you could improve to push you to the next level. I think that's so important.
There's been a kind of like a trend of online training sessions, which are all done via Zoom, and you know, I just didn't think much to them to begin with, and now I think football will always exist with them now, because it's that extra, as you say, it's that individual training, it's that maybe 1-2 hours a week where you've got a ball at your feet and you're working on various stuff. And you know, there are a lot of good ones out there free of charge if you look on Google or on YouTube. Or so you know, I think the girls who were, and it was one of the questions from Hannah Knowles in the 15. She asked, you know, is there anything she can be using this time, because she's got ambitions to go and play in America. And so really, really wise words. Evie, I cannot thank you enough for your time. I know how busy you are out there in New Jersey, you know, lapping it up. Currently, I think 3 degrees here in Preston, and the last time I saw you at the other side of the Brooklyn Bridge, it was about 35.
It was.
There's no Shake Shack here for us, Evie.
Too funny.
For your time, and I'm sure all the girls really appreciate your wise words, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Definitely. Thanks for the question.